What's up, everyone? I'm James Lynch, and this is Early Look. What is this show all about? Well, this is a show where I take a look at an upcoming notable fight, and on today's edition, we're going to be looking at the featherweight 5-round main event, UFC Fight Night, October 29th in Vegas, between Calvin Kattar and Arnold Allen. But before I give you my preview and pick, you know the drill here. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. It's really an easy thing to do, and it really does help out this channel big time. Okay, let's get into this one. Really exciting matchup, like I mentioned off the top here. First 5-round main event for Arnold Allen, and this will be Calvin Kattar's 5th 5-round main event, so a little bit of a difference there. Let's start first with the fact that this is going to be at the Apex, so it'll be a smaller cage, maybe more likely of a finish. That's usually what we've seen. That's what the data says, that there are more finishes with the smaller cage. Let's start first, though, with Calvin Kattar. Shall we? So as you can see there, Calvin Kattar, 23-6 record. He's got 11 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 10 decisions. He's a number 5 ranked UFC featherweight. He is 34 years old. He is 5'11" with a 72-inch reach. So he'll have a 3-inch height and 2-inch reach advantage in this fight against Arnold Allen. Kattar is a BJJ blue belt. Always mention this. Kattar, I always like mention this little tidbit that Kattar was influenced by the Diaz brothers. He actually got to train with them when he was 19 years old. So if you've seen a lot of violence in Kattar's fights, that's where it comes from. Always got to point out that through 29 career fights, Calvin Kattar has never been finished. He's been close. Obviously, Max Holloway being the closest, but Kattar, very, very, very durable. Calvin Kattar's got fight of the night 5 times against Shane Burgos, Zabit Magomedsharipov, Max Holloway, Giga Chikadze, and most recently against Josh Emmett. Now, if you look here, Calvin Kattar, like some fighters, never had any amateur fights, made his pro MMA debut in June of 2007. Didn't make his UFC debut until July of 2017 when he fought Andre Fili on short notice. He's 7-4 in the UFC. He's got 4 stoppage wins. Some notable wins include Andre Fili, Shane Burgos, Jeremy Stevens, Dan Ige, and Giga Chikadze. Some key losses that he's had, you can see there, Renato Moicano, Zabit Magomedsharipov, Max Holloway, and Josh Emmett. He's only really had 1 layoff in his career. Kattar pretty active if you look at his resume here. Fighting 2-3 times a year, it seems, for the most part. The only layoff was going from Holloway to Chikadze, and there was a 364-day layoff. But outside of that, pretty active. Fought last in June, and now he's fighting here before the end of the year. No major injuries here for Calvin Kattar. He's been pretty healthy, like I said. If you're going to be active, you're probably not having many injuries. He's only had 1 close fight, and that happened to be his last fight. And, you know, there's a lot of debate on who won that fight, back and forth. I personally scored it for Josh Emmett. Watching it, I've rewatched it. I still think you can make a case for Emmett, but you can also make a case for Kattar. It was very close. I'm not going to sit here and say it was a robbery. I think Emmett just did a better job of convincing the judges that he won that fight. And if you look at the media scorecards for that, because we always do that here, if you go to MMA Decisions, and again, that was at UFC Austin, June 2022, 4 media members scoring the fight for Emmett, 14 scoring it for Kattar. And I should also mention, going into that fight, I did have Kattar, so it's not like I'm being biased or anything. I just remember watching that thinking that Emmett won, but again, it was close. Like, I don't think it was we've seen worse fights than this as far as judges' scorecards. I think we can at least admit that, but very, very, very close fight, but it did not go Calvin Kattar's way. One interesting thing with Kattar, if you look at his career, he's never lost back-to-back fights. So this is why this matchup against Arnold Allen is going to be very interesting. So that's pretty much all we have for Calvin Kattar. Again, pretty self-explanatory, absolute killer, exciting fighter to watch. And yeah, big fight here against Arnold Allen. Let's get into Arnold Allen, though. Great record. Look at that. 18-1. Almighty Arnold Allen. He's got 6 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 8 decisions. He's a number 6th ranked featherweight. So number 5 taking on number 6. Arnold Allen is 28 years old. He is 5'6" with a 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. So the only advantage that he has in this fight from a physical standpoint is that he's 6 years younger than Kattar, which is actually a pretty big difference if you think about it. Like Kattar, actually, no, Kattar's a blue belt. I was going to say Allen is a BJJ purple belt. Allen has trained at TriStar in the past, but I don't think he's trained there for a while because of the pandemic and everything. I had a peep at his Instagram. Looks like he's training at Team Renegade, which is home of, you know, the Edwards brothers, Leon Edwards and Fabian Edwards, who's in Bellator. So that's not bad training partners to have. So getting a lot of good looks there. He's got performance of the night 3 times against Alan Omer, Mads Burnell, and most recently Dan Hooker, which was his last fight. Arnold Allen made his amateur debut back in February of 2010, made his MMA debut in April of 2012, and made his UFC debut in June of 2015, which is interesting because, like I mentioned there, he actually made his debut almost 2 years earlier than Calvin Kattar, which is kind of interesting. as you can see here, Arnold Allen is 9-0 in the UFC. He's got 3 stoppage victories, some notable wins. Makwan Amirkhani, that was a big win at the time. I believe Amirkhani was either ranked or close to being ranked at that time, but still a good win there. Then his last 2 fights, Sodiq Yusuff, ranked opponent, very good win. We've seen what Sodiq has done in the octagon. It's very, very, very impressive here. So that's a good win to have on the resume. And then obviously Dan Hooker, knocking him out in the first round. That was a really, really, really big win, and that's why he's getting this opportunity here. So very, very big win, and that's why he's getting a fight like Calvin Kattar, and obviously he doesn't have any notable losses because he hasn't lost there. Another interesting thing with Allen that I went back and looked at, he's fought twice at bantamweight, and he's fought once at lightweight, 16 times at featherweight. So dabbled a little bit in different weight classes, just for those who are interested in that stuff. Okay, now the one thing with Arnold Allen, because I have seen some people talk about, should he be getting a title shot instead of this fight? Should he be, fighting someone a little bit ranked higher because of the fact that he knocked out Hooker? But I think one of the big problems with Arnold Allen, unfortunately, is that he's not that active. I'm going to go through some of the layoffs he's had since he started his UFC career. And again, I know to some that might be a surprise that he made his debut so much earlier than Calvin Kattar did. But going from Alan Omer to Meza, there was a 252-day layoff. Going from Meza to Amirkhani, there was a 385-day layoff. Going from Amirkhani to Burnell, there's a 435-day layoff. Going from Burnell to Rinaldi, there was a 293-day layoff. And then going from Nick Lentz to Sodiq Yusuff, there's a 441-day layoff. In fact, this is only the second time in a calendar year in his UFC career for Arnold Allen that he's actually fought twice in the year. The last time was 2019. He fought twice then. This year he'll fight twice, but not very active for Arnold Allen. There's a variety of reasons for that. We'll get into those right now. So he's had a few injuries. He had an injury. He was supposed to take on Mirsad Bektic back in October of 2016, which is interesting because I believe Bektic actually trained at TriStar back then. So I don't know if they were training at the same time. But that fight didn't take place, undisclosed injury. Then he was supposed to fight Enrique Barzola in January of 2018. There was some visa issues there with him getting across the border. And then he was supposed to fight Ricky Glenn back at the Ultimate Fighter 28 finale and had an injury there as well. Again, undisclosed from what I could tell. So that's one of the things with Allen, like great record, but being active really does help your case for moving up the rankings. And I think this is the perfect fight, but like I said, I have seen some critics of people saying that, hey, maybe Allen should get a step up higher than a guy in Kattar who technically is coming off a loss here. Okay, let's get to the odds. So as you can see here, most books having Kattar as the favorite, just a slight favorite here, which I agree with the odds here. I think there really is a case to be made for Kattar being the favorite and also only him being a slight favorite here, because this is kind of an interesting situation. It kind of reminds me at the time of recording this, it's October 11th. We have Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira next Saturday. At the time of recording this, kind of reminds me a bit of Islam in the sense that, like, how good is Islam? We're going to find out next Saturday. Same thing with Allen. Like, Allen has looked great, but we haven't seen him fight that much, and we also haven't seen him fight the level of opposition that Kattar has. Like, I don't think it's any secret Kattar has fought the better opposition. Going through the resumes a little bit here just quickly. Again, Amirkhani was a good win. Burnell, not in the UFC, doing quite well in Bellator. I'll give him credit for that. Rinaldi was cut from the UFC. Melendez retired shortly after that. Nick Lentz retired shortly after that. Yusuff still kicking. That's a very good win for him. And Dan Hooker, I think that had a lot to do with Dan Hooker cutting that weight. I think that's too much of a cut. We've seen Hooker get finished before. I think, and if you look at Dan Hooker's featherweight resume, I mean, he's been finished before. So I think the cut was a bit too much. Not taking anything away from Allen, but just putting the context out there that while Hooker is a name, he's a notable guy. I mean, I think Calvin Kattar might have been able to knock out Dan Hooker, if we're being honest here, just because of the fact that Hooker is, like I said, I think with him cutting that much weight, with how big he, like I've seen Hooker in person. I don't know how he made 45. Very, very, very big guy for the weight class. So I think that had a bit to do with the loss, but also the fact that Allen's looking great. But that's my question is, like, we saw the power that Arnold Allen had in that fight. Is that going to be able to translate here against Calvin Kattar? We'll see. I mean, Kattar's fought power punchers, though. Josh Emmett is a power puncher. He's a guy that will put your lights out. Allen, I think with what he showed in the last fight, certainly can fit that bill as well, too. But again, you look at a lot of Allen's wins, they're not knockouts. He's got a couple submission wins and a lot of decision wins as well. The other thing I'll mention with Allen, too, is that I think more noise would be, there's fighters that are certainly inactive and still get a lot of praise. I think one of the things that you could call a knock on Allen as well is that a lot of these fights have gone to decision, like Rinaldi, Melendez, and Lentz. I think if he was going to make more noise and talk about him being a future champion, a future contender, I think if he finished those fights, there would be some more noise around Allen. Is kind of what I'm getting at here. Now with Kattar, you look at his losses; he's only lost to the best. I think if he fought Moicano now, he probably beats him. Zabit, one of the big what ifs, obviously retired prematurely. A lot of people losing to Max Holloway, let's be honest. However, that fight wasn't even close. Like, Holloway completely dominated him, and then Kattar went out and put on a really good performance against Chikaze after that. So I think Kattar has proven that he's a top 5 guy with the win over Chikaze. But certainly when he lost to Holloway, I think there were some questions. And then the Emmett fight, like I said, could have gone either way, but very close fight. No shame in losing to Josh Emmett, who I also see is top 5. Okay, so I'll get to my pick here. I agree with the odds here. I think that Calvin Kattar is going to likely win this fight, and there's a few reasons why. Number one, the 5-round experience. I think that is huge. We've seen Kattar, even in the 5th round, still survive against a guy like Max Holloway. Now, Holloway, not a power puncher, like I said. He does have TKO wins, but he's not a one-punch knockout guy. Max Holloway, that is. So, that's something, maybe if Kattar had the similar performance against Holloway as he did against Emmett, maybe Emmett finishes him, is kind of what I'm getting at here. But yes, Kattar has that in the back pocket, is the fact that he's got the 5-round experience. Kattar's fought better opposition. Kattar's going to have a height and reach advantage in this fight, so that also plays into it. And the other thing with Kattar is that he's more active. I think I'm a firm believer in activity. I think that does make a big difference when you're competing that much. Now, granted, Allen just fought earlier this year, so maybe in this particular fight it won't be a big deal. But I just think overall, Kattar, we've seen more of him in the octagon. We know more about Kattar, I think, at this point than we do Allen. And that's why I brought up the Islam example in the set. And again, I'm not saying that Islam and Arnold Allen are the same style of fighter. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that we've seen glimpses of greatness from both of them with Allen obviously finishing Dan Hooker and Islam finishing Dan Hooker and Bobby Green as well. But what I'm getting at is that, can that translate to a better opponent? We'll have to see here. Calvin Kattar's far better than Dan Hooker, in my opinion. Can Arnold Allen knock out Calvin Kattar? He might. Maybe this is the fight. Maybe this is the fight where Kattar's chin gives out and Allen's able to knock him out. That very well could happen here. I'm not naive to think that. But from what we've seen of who Kattar's fought and been in there with, I don't think Arnold Allen's going to finish him. Now, he's going to out wrestle him, maybe, but Allen, Kattar's also shown a good game plan with his wrestling against Chikaze as well. So I think he could hold his own in the wrestling. I think when it comes to striking, I think Kattar's a little bit more technical in the striking, and I think Allen has more power. So how's that going to look over 5 rounds? We'll see. Maybe it results in a Kattar knockout loss. Maybe it results in him winning by decision. I think more likely, I think the safe bet here is Calvin Kattar winning by decision here. I think that's the play. Again, I think there's more reasons to like him. Maybe Allen surprises us and shows us something we haven't seen before. But right now, I think the surefire thing is Kattar winning a decision here. I also think if Arnold Allen wins this fight, I think it's more likely a decision than a knockout, just because of Kattar's durability and what he's been able to do. And again, Kattar's had enough time off. When he fought Holloway to fight Chikaze, he had like a year layoff. So he's, it's not an issue of him fighting too soon and taking too much damage. And even in the fight against Emmett, he didn't really take a ton of damage in that fight. He definitely got hit, but it wasn't anything close to the Holloway fight. So that's my official pick. Calvin Kattar by decision to get it done over Arnold Allen. It's possible Kattar could finish Allen, but you look at Allen's career, just the one loss in Cage Warriors, and it was a decision loss. I don't think we're going to see Kattar finish him unless Allen tires out in the later rounds and Kattar's maybe able to take advantage, but that's not very typical of Calvin Kattar. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's discuss this fight, everyone. Civilly, obviously, always open to hearing new ideas or why you think a certain fighter is, got the advantage or doesn't have the advantage. Let's talk about this fight. It's very interesting. Dare I say, flying under the radar a little bit. Very, very good fight for the featherweight division right now. So really excited for this one. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. And one more time, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. If you guys have any other suggestions for fights you want me to preview, let me know in the comments. But just so you know, most main events I do preview. Most sort of notable fighters, I preview their fights. There'll be a few that are coming up that I have on my list of things to break down and look at. But like I said, if you want to discuss this civilly, more than happy to do that. Obviously, if you're not going to talk like that, no point in me wasting my time. So there we go. All right, everyone. I'm James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.